Hey everybody, welcome back to Unlimited Commander. I'm Adam, and I'm joined as always by my lovely co-host Matt. Matt, how's it going?
Oh, it's not too bad. I got caught up on the March of the Machines lore last night. I read the first seven, I think, stories, not chapters because they also have all the extra side stories and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I made it all the way through the Arcavius one, and there's a lot of emotion going on. And then our good friend Light uh, managed to summarize the rest for me for now, so that I can process everything and then come back and maybe read the rest of the stories later. That look shows that there's a lot of opinion on the story.
This is some of the best stories we've gotten in a very long time, right up to the conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I'm going to spoil it here because I don't know where our audience sits as far as like how the story goes, and maybe like after some spoilers are completed and people can catch up, I might actually. But I will say, uh, my one word emotion on the thing is unsatisfied.
Mm-hmm. We talked a lot about this before the March of the Machine story came out. We I talk a lot about this, and for people out there who don't read the Magic story, if you are into like fantastical lore, usually the web stories are pretty well written. Like they're not usually bad, but there are times that they can have unsatisfying situations. And one of the big things that I tend to bring up is when you do a multiverse, like whenever you get everybody, when the stakes are so high that nothing else could happen but good guys win, like you can't really it would take so much to satisfyingly wrap that up. I think Star Wars is probably the best example in recent, and I'm talking the original trilogy, is the best example I have in recent years of something threatening such a wide thing and managing to mostly like wrap it up nicely in a way that feels good to the audience member watching.
Like, yeah. I mean, I've got other ones in there that I've felt like at least moderately satisfied by over the years. Like, I'm one of
Mm-hmm.
the few people who thought that like the big final battle in like Avengers Endgame was worth it. And I don't watch much past that, but at least there was like resonating consequence. And I will say
Mm-hmm.
that that is perhaps my, and again, I'm trying not to spoil too much. Please go read them. They're actually good stories,
They are good.
very well written. And considering that they took the entire story of a set, composed it into like 10 small chapters, it's
Yeah.
basically a tiny novel.
Yeah.
But uh, I don't feel like we're feeling any consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like phase 4/5 of the MCU saw a lot of people dealing with like the constant grief, and like they
Mm-hmm.
lost the full 5 years post, like after the snap, and like that all still existed. Everybody was just brought back, but they didn't change anything. Like it's just,
Mm-hmm.
it created an interesting dynamic that
Mm-hmm.
they could write stories around. And this went so neatly in the Magic story
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like there's nothing that we can say or do about it, and nothing's going to matter.
Mm-hmm.
So go read them, I guess, and then please leave comments down below about how you felt about the story. Hit us up directly on Twitter or whatever have you, and I will happily reinforce this. We had a group chat over the last 12 hours or so once the stories were released, as you were saying, you,
Mm-hmm.
myself, and Light, and we all kind of came to a relatively similar conclusion about like the level of dissatisfaction with that. But
Mm-hmm. And again, it's like depending on the kind of person you are, with all of the good story in there, that might be enough to sway you to read it and enjoy the emotional pulls, because there are
mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm,
big emotional moments, cry worthy moments, laugh worthy moments, those kind of things.
mm-hmm.
But um, for some people, knowing it has an unsatisfying ending is deterring. I personally say still read it because it's still worth that time and energy. And if you're worried that you're going to be lost during reading these kind of things, because I know some of our audience are kind of like newer to Magic, and they think lore is this big, overwhelming thing, you are going to be lost, and that's fine.
Mhm.
Because
Wiki pages exist for this reason.
yeah, if you find a character that you're like, oh, this is cool, but I don't really understand the motivation that's going on, just find a wiki page, read the short summary about them,
Google it.
Google it.
Google it for sure.
It's worth it, and that's sort of kind of Magic's whole thing since like '97. Really, is that it's like, I don't know anything about this character, and if you Google them, it's like, oh yeah, they had a thing back in 1994 that people like only people who were around since the very beginning would have any clue who this person was.
And
Jared Carthalion is one of those in my mind.
yeah, and like there's the thing with Magic is that like it's 30 years old now.
Mhm.
And so much of the storytelling as well is done in the cards themselves, whether it
Mhm.
be in the art or the flavor text or even just like the name of cards. And so like you're not going to get all this from just reading these stories. Don't feel bad about having to like look up a character and see what you need to know about them to carry on with the story, because it's super deep. And honestly, there's characters that even were like Venser and Koth being lifelong friends, although having only met in that first like 10 minutes in the story of New Phyrexia. So it's all over the place. 30 years. They're trying to clean it up. And they're doing a lot better now, which is why we still say go read them, because they do read better than they used to.
Mhm.
But it's the conclusion. And maybe I'm the wrong one. You know what? If you read them and you're like, Adam, you're wrong, and all of these conclusions are satisfying and they leave us in a good place, tell me I'm wrong. And we can
Mhm.
have a hearty debate about it.
As far as old stories go, do not read super old stories of Magic. They are very problematic and have very bad writing. I'm talking like 90s, especially early 2000s. But if you want a really cool like breakdown of stuff that happens in one of the earlier novels, Spice 8 Rack did a video on Fall of the Thran that he tied to eugenics and like how people describe eugenics. That is one of my favorite videos, literally of all time. Like it is so well executed.
They also spend most of that video in character as Yawgmoth, so that
Yep.
should also hit a lot of people. I just recently rewatched that one, and yeah, Spice 8 Rack in general does a really good job of breaking down the lore. Also, Ristic Studies, Sam does a really good job of breaking down some of the lore and art.
Magic Arcanum does a good job of compacting story into a small bit. So if you are ever curious about that, those are three good, excellent YouTube sources if you are not much of a wiki reader, if wiki reading is something that you find.
Video essay is a great format in my very ADHD riddled mind.
Yep.
When there's pictures, I'm engaged.
Me too.
So speaking of pictures, let's try another segue. We got a great many spoilers from at the time of recording. Actually, I think the video is still going for another 8 minutes as we're recording, so we might not even get all the ones that have popped up. But a lot of spoilers for March of the Machine came out this morning. And Matt, you and I are very excited to get into how we react to some of these. We're not necessarily going to do like a full set review on anything basically ever, because lots of people do set reviews, and I don't think that we want to end up in the space where we're doing set reviews, because we're not going to do it better than some of them, nor to the same degree. But what we can do is talk about cards we like, things we think are cool, and stuff we plan on playing, and just generally seeing it from our personal perspectives on what we like in cards and what we want to do with cards and where we're going to put cards. Okay, sorry everybody. There was going to be a weird cut there as I was editing, but I realized after we had already started recording that I ran out of coffee, and I'm not recording an episode without a cup of coffee. So, Matt, how do you think this is going to go?
Yeah, so I just want to throw out some things for people who may be those kind of people who don't like to know about spoilers ahead of time. First off, beautiful thing about a video and an audio format, if you want to go in absolutely spoiler free into March of the Machine, you can pause this right now and come back to it after March of the Machine's out and you've done what you need to do. If you need that clear space, I say go ahead and use it. However, this is my personal opinion on spoilers in general. Not leaks, but spoilers. Spoilers are their way of hyping the set. So everything that you're going to see, it's there for the idea of getting excited. So you're not really ruining your excitement for the most part by checking out these kind of things and getting an idea of what's coming up. This is going to have pictures of scenes that already have been told to us based on the stories that exist. So if you're really worried about it, go read the story. You'll get caught up on why people are the way they are in these pictures, and then you won't be completely blindsided by whatever's going on.
Perfect. So we're looking at I think magicspoiler.com. All we confirmed is that they're in the same order for both of us while we look on this website. Most of these are like still new to us. We're going to scroll through and just kind of take a peek and pull out ones that we think are neat or worth talking about. I myself am probably going to look at all of the battles because I think they're neat.
Yeah.
We've been revealed a couple of the like team ups that might be cool to talk about, plus other just neat cards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we could probably start with battle as a good topic of conversation if you're okay with that.
I had seen this morning somewhere on the internet space just a quick breakdown of how battles are going to work. Specifically the siege ones, because that's the only ones we have. They put out a new card type for the first time ever, and the first time in a long time we've got a new card type. The last new card type was Planeswalker in Lorwyn. That's a long time.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about it through the first card I'd like to talk about. Invasion of Fiora. If anyone of you know me out in the world, mono black is my thing. So looking at the mono black invasion is probably where I'm going to start. So again, the way this works, it costs 6 for a black, and it's a siege. So you play it, you control it, and then you choose an opponent as it comes out to be the protector of it. So when it comes out, and when Invasion of Fiora enters the battlefield, choose one or both of these effects. Destroy all legendary creatures, destroy all non-legendary creatures. So it comes out with 4 defense counters. I say Adam is the protector of it, and I can choose to destroy all legendaries, all non-legendaries, or basically all creatures, because all creatures are either legendary or non-legendary. And then it is on the board, and Adam is protecting it. It has 4 counters on it. My other opponents, other than Adam, if we're playing multiplayer, and I can attack this and lower the number of defense counters on it. Once all those defense counters are gone, it will exile and recast transformed as Marchesa, Resolute Monarch, a 3/6 human noble with Menace, Death Touch, and whenever Marchesa attacks, remove all counters from up to 1 target permanent, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if you haven't been dealt combat damage since your last turn, you draw a card and lose 1 life. This card is going to give you sort of a pseudo version of Monarch, and I am 100% with the way this card is built. Ability to destroy all legendaries or non-legendaries means that you can put the person who's going to be in control, or protecting this card. Don't use the word control. Control means something in Magic. But you get to put the person who's protecting this card, and then you can blow up all of the creatures they have. Because if all of their creatures are legendary, or all of their creatures are non-legendary, you can be like, okay, I'm giving this to Adam. Adam is only playing non-legendaries right now. Let's wipe all the non-legendaries from the board. So next turn I can try to attack this and get my Marchesa as soon as possible. The Marchesa seems good, but not super broken. It's got nice effects against green, which I like black decks to have.
I do like Vampire Hexmage as a card.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't like about Vampire Hexmage is that it only happens once and it only happens when it enters. The repeatable effect, and it's not just in like against green, like there's a lot of stuff going on, especially now that we've just finished. I don't know what else is going on in this set specifically, so I'm not speaking to
Mm-hmm.
that, but just like even post all will be one, which we're just like still kind of in the midst of as these spoilers are coming out. We don't get this set for another couple weeks in stores, but things like Icar Gauntlet comes to mind, right? Like the one that like
Mm-hmm.
reduces the number or the cost of your instants and sorceries by the number of oil counters on it. Let's go with something along the lines of somebody's been really ramping and they've got their Astral Cornucopia up to like 5 counters on it, or something to that effect. Or in the same vein, the Chalice.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can't
Yeah.
remember now. The Zero Man, or like the
Yeah. Everflowing
XX Chalice,
chalice. Yeah.
Ever-flowing Chalice,
Everflowing
right?
chalice.
So the
Mm-hmm.
number of things that exist in our space, especially in Commander,
Mm-hmm.
that rely on the counters that exist, like that are on them, but one Vampire Hex Mage isn't good enough for removal.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of fills that space, and I'm excited about that part. I think that like transforming it is going to be a little bit more tough than it sounds, because then you're also probably going to wipe your own board,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and then it's going to be like
In Commander, it's going to be a lot harder to, especially Commander, which I think is where these are going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot harder because the mix between legendaries and non-legendaries is a big thing. So a lot of times you're going to have to do the full board wipe, which means you also have to hit in. Another interesting thing about Marchesa's Vampire Hex Mage ability, the removing all counters, defense counters are a type of counter. So if you are playing a deck with a fair amount of battles in it, you can remove the defense counters from your thing. And as far as we know right now, we haven't gotten full confirmation on this yet, but that would mean that the battle is defeated and you get to flip more creatures. So that's cool. That's cool.
anything
That's
that removes the counters from it considers it defeated. Like that's why like you can like
yeah.
lightning bolt it.
Yeah. It's going to be a really cool way of empowering your own battle techniques if you want to. So that's always good. I just like cards that shut off very popular ways of playing, because it forces people to kind of think a little more about what they're going to do. And like I've got a modified deck. I have a deck that relies entirely on +1/+1 counters, like running the gambit. And this card will mess up that deck. It won't just flat out kill it. It won't completely destroy what I'm doing, but it will hinder me from being able to just get 5 17/17s on the board and swinging in for trample. So that's good. That's a good thing.
Also, a neat little note, and what I'm excited for, is that these battles give the opportunity to bring planes into the conversation that we don't really get the opportunity to visit in the expansion sets. Fiora specifically is the plane where the conspiracy sets take place.
Mm-hmm.
And we only visit Fiora when we get a conspiracy set, and much to the same that we only visit, oh crud, what's the one that Battle Bond. Battle Bond is its own plane as well. I can't remember the name of it, but
Yeah.
These various planes that we don't get to visit very frequently because they're only used in ancillary sets. Now we get an opportunity to bring them into the conversation and experience them a bit more. As we were talking before we started going through, Tolvada is one of the invasions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's where we get to see a plane we haven't visited before. It's Kaya's home plane.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't actually have a set that ever took place on it, and we haven't visited it before. So now we get to see these places that we haven't visited before or in a long time, and certainly not in a standard set. And now we get to go and like pop our head in and see how it's going. When it enters the battlefield, return target non-battle permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Ooh, very Kaya-ish. Mm-hmm. And it's 3 a white and a black for the invasion of Tolvada, and it is 5 defense counters.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, excellent. And it flips over to an enchantment that says creature tokens you control get +1/+0 and have lifelink. And at the beginning of your end step, make a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. I don't know where I would put it, but in general, I shouldn't say that. I could see. I'm going to say this right from the get-go. By the way, every battle is an amazing cube card.
Oh yeah, absolutely. just the battles from that we've seen today, which we don't know if we've seen all the battles or if there's going to be some more spoiled or not. Probably going to be a few more.
Mhm.
But just you could build a cube based on the mechanics of the ones that we've seen spoiled today, and you will have a cube with enough variation and cohesion that you could easily draft out of those sets. So
Mhm.
it's a very cool situation.
Yeah, and like I'm constantly toting how a versatile card is a good cube card. Where, for example, I have been a really big fan of the use something something somethings
Mm-hmm.
out of the various D&D sets. Like you happen upon a glade or any of those. I don't remember all of them because there's so many, but I love jamming those in cubes because they all have a versatility to them. They don't have the best costing. They're always like the regrowth one, for example, is 3 instead of 2.
Mm-hmm.
But there's two different things you can do. There's the like the Teferi's protection style one that just came out. Your temple is under attack.
Yeah.
That one is 3 mana instead of 2 for what would normally be the effect of your creatures get indestructible. But you also get the option of you and a target opponent each draw 2 cards that you could use if you're not under attack. The versatility of those cards, these multifaceted cards, which is also why I like jamming in the charms
Mm-hmm.
wherever I can
Yeah.
in my cube.
Modal
And
effects always
yeah,
do good
modal effect.
stuff.
And so these end up being a really interesting take on that, where like you get one effect when they come in, and if you can succeed at getting rid of the one on the battlefield, then you get a different effect entirely. Like they evolve with the game, and they are really good to fill in a lot of those slots that you would normally struggle to put something in that would not upset the balance too much, because I haven't seen a single one of these. I'm just looking at, like, for example, the only one that is mythic that I've seen so far is Invasion of New Phyrexia, which is X white blue for a 6 defense counter battle. And when it enters the battlefield, create X 2/2 white and blue knight creature tokens with vigilance. And if you do get it to flip over, it's Teferi Akosa of Zalfir, which is a 4 loyalty planeswalker with a +1 to draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard a creature card. -2, you get an emblem with knights you control, get +1/+0, and have ward 1. And -3 is tap X creatures you control. When you do, shuffle target non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value X or less into its owner's library. The versatility on this stupid card, where like it comes down and could be just there, so you could try and take it out to flip it into Teferi, or ends up being like Call the Copper Coats kind of effect.
Mm-hmm.
Super versatile, and this is the like the only mythic one, and it is an all-star, and I cannot wait for these to open so that I can start jamming them into my own cube.
Mm-hmm. And you know, another good thing about that kind of thing, especially to me, is that uh, Teferi is usually just like an extra oppressive planeswalker. And this particular one is very fair. This is a
Mhm.
very fair planeswalker. This is what I talk about a lot when I think about game development and like building a good planeswalker, because none of its effects just like straight kill it immediately, but all of its effects only give it so much value. And in order for you to really get there, you've got to already be playing knights. Like you can't just get there off of the X cost of the original battle. You have to have knights in your deck and make things happen. And that is the mark of a good card, that it works cohesively in one way, but it also is just, it's fine. It's not completely blown out in its own right.
Agreed. I'm probably going to even put that one in, even though, as I've stated, I don't think I have a single planeswalker in mine. The other neat thing, what I just saw, was we got a reference to a plane we have not been to anywhere except for on a plane in a plane
Mm-hmm.
chase card. The Invasion of Urgamon. I don't know anything about Urgamon specifically, but I'm still going to read the card because it's what we're doing today.
Yeah.
A red and a green for a 5 I'm going to get this wrong every time until it becomes second nature. Defense counter. 5 defense counter siege, and it enters the battlefield. You create a treasure token. Then you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Like a nice little loot with a treasure token refund of 1. So like it only costs 1 mana. And then we don't even see the backside of it yet. I don't even care. I don't even care. I'm mostly talking about it because this is another neat way where we get to like visit planes that we have not ever seen before. We have visited Ergamon on one single solitary plane called Trua Jungle, and now we have seen it in this battle. So that's very neat. That's all I had to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do think that that's good because a lot of times when it comes to the worlds that we're in, a lot of the worlds don't get to shine because we're worried about the characters inside of that world. And that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that kind of storytelling. But if you want us to keep wanting to come back to the plane, you have to have us invested in that plane and what it does. And this is a good way to tease a plane that we've barely seen so that if we ever do go to Ergamon, we're like, oh, I remember that place. It's the place with the cool rhinos and the cacti flower things. And, you know, like, what are we going to be doing there? You know, like some kind of jungly thing.
So I wanted to take a quick peek. There's not too many of these that I personally want to reach out to, like cycles that are like seeing an increase. We get another Sword of X and Y in Sword of Once and Future, which per its usual, it's a 3 mana artifact equipment that equips for 2, and it gives +2/+2 and protection from. This time is blue and black. And I think this completes the cycle, actually, if I recall correctly.
It's got to.
One.
I'm pretty sure.
I think so. So we finally see the culmination, and I will tell you, it is right where we are right now, and nowhere near as good as the others. But we'll get into that. Whenever an equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, Surveil 2, which is look at the top X cards of your library. You may put any number on top or in your graveyard. Then you may cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. And if that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Is this a good sword?
No.
Yeah, I wasn't really sold on it either. It's fine. Yeah. I will say that it fits into the like mid-range ones. I wouldn't say it's the worst one because like card selection, protection from black and blue is pretty important.
Yeah.
Like the protection from black stops you from any of the murder spells. And less so the bounce effects, but still.
Yeah. So here's the thing about the swords in general. For a brief history lesson for some of the audience. The swords card started, I want to say, in the Scars of Mirrodin block, right? OG Mirrodin. The OG Mirrodin block. That's correct. OG Mirrodin.
15 years for this specific card.
Yeah. So OG Mirrodin had some of these powerful swords in it. All the swords do have 2 things in common. One is that they are, or a few things in common. One is that they are all 3 colorless costs. They all equip for 2. They all give +2/+2. And then they give protection from 2 colors, each individual one. And then they all do something when combat damage happens related to the colors that they give protection from. So this particular one, though, like when we talk about power level of the swords, all the power levels of the swords are in the same realm now. When they first started coming out, there was ones that it's like, this one is amazing. You want to play it in various formats. It's so good. It does whatever it needs to do or whatever. As the game has shifted with the way that cards are balanced and things like that, I think that the best sword is still a maybe play. Like you play it because you want it more than you play it because it's necessary.
I would say that is true for all of them except Feast and Famine.
Feast and
Famine can also, there's an argument that Feast and Famine could be included in every deck.
Yeah. Feast and Famine is a particularly good sword, and there's still, I would say the argument is like, it's like, it is good. Do I need this instead of, whatever?
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
An argument. For a point of reference, Sword of Feast and Famine is 3 cost, 2 equip sword, protection from black and green, and whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card, and you untap all lands you control.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what that's
Yeah.
why it fits into everything. It gives
Yeah.
like a ramp edge to decks that maybe don't have a strong like ramp ability. Something along the
Yeah.
lines of like an Is It deck, for example, is
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
struggle to ramp out.
Yeah.
So when I say an argument could be made that this
Yeah.
could fit in any deck. If you've got one and you're like, I don't know, this will probably do the trick, you'll find it'll work. It won't
Mm-hmm.
fit your theme for the most part because
Yeah.
unless you're playing like the only one I play it in is my equipment deck.
Yeah.
Because it's an equipment deck.
And I 100% agree with that. I think that there is an argument for Feast and Famine in every deck, especially if you're playing like non-green decks, because it is a really good way of fixing your ramp situation. I hadn't even thought of it for Chun-Li, and I probably should be running it in Chun-Li.
Right. So like, and that's what we say when we say like, are they good swords? That's the best sword.
Mm-hmm.
And then like it's like that's S tier, and then there's like 2 that are like A tier, and then everything kind of falls between like underneath it somewhere. And like from my first viewing of it, having not played with it, I would say that this is somewhere in like B.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. And then, but like that's sort of my thing is that like when we talk about it, it's like the sword, Feast and Famine, which we are in agreement is there's an argument to be made that you can play it in literally any deck, especially in Commander. You would still be like, I can run it. Is there something I'd rather be running above it? You can figure that out and debate on your own. But if that is the best a sword gets, and the worst a sword tends to get is like, this deck needs help prod against these 2 colors. I might be able to throw it in if I want to, but it's not really going to be the nail in the coffin that I need it to be. I couldn't even say which sword I think is the absolute worst.
Like they're all kind of like Fire and Ice isn't great. Deals combat damage to a player. It deals 2 damage to any target, and you draw a card. At least you draw a card. I guess.
Yeah, Truth and Justice I think is pretty low. I think that's the red white one.
Blue white. +1 counter on something and then proliferate. So you really gotta want it to want it.
Yeah, you gotta want it to want it, right?
War and Peace is pretty medium because it's 2 dependent. That's the one where like you gain life equal to the cards in your hand, and they take damage equal to the cards in yours.
Yeah. So you got to do a lot of push and pull with it. This one I would say fits better than the worst ones because Surveilling 2 is always like being able to scry or surveil is useful in many decks. And if you are playing instants and sorceries with mana value 2 or less, being able to cast them for free is okay. Like nothing.
My only problem with that is that usually, like, especially with like blue and black, is if you're going to go in and you're going to try and like sneak in and then grab one of these, what are you grabbing that's going to matter? Like 2 mana in black and blue gets you like cantrips or draw spells, and it gets you removal spells.
Yeah.
And if you're at the point where you're sneaking through with this sword, is it really going to get you that much value? You already got in. You don't need the removal.
Right.
Right? Like,
yeah, no, I agree. I don't think I would play this in blue black though. I would want to play it in something like a mono white commander deck or something where the removal is permanent and I can use it in a 4-player game so that I can be like, I'm going to attack you, blue black player, get in and hopefully drop a path or swords
thing,
and swords or path somebody's problematic creature bit. But I do agree. That's what I'm saying. Like
like
people who
could
are
find
watching,
use for it.
Yeah.
You could find use for it in your deck. You could always find an argument for any sword if that's the way yours is going. Like we can sit here and find like spots that'll fit all day.
Yeah,
like the red equipment aristocracy thing where you like dump everything into your graveyard, which the surveil would help with, and then like you use like the lightning bolt in your graveyard, or you use the I don't know, card advantage. Like that's all you really get at 2 mana value or less, right? Is card advantage and removal. So
yeah, I think it's interesting that they're trying to like finish out these cycles, right? Because they decided that it's like, there should be 10 or there should be one for every color group pairing because we've done other color pairings. It's cool, but it does lead to these moments of like, is it worth making if it's not going to be useful? I don't think so. But if you make it too useful, you make it too much, because a sword, in by being colorless, a sword is available in every
Mhm.
single deck. So you do not want to make it so strong that it ends up being a staple for every deck that's doing anything. And it's like, and make sure you run Feast and Famine, because whatever. Right?
I will say that they had no choice but to do it here, though.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
they were going to finish the cycle, because it started
If
on
you were going to do
Mirrodin,
it,
which is
now's the time.
Mirrodin was the name of the plane before the Phyrexians got there. So Mirrodin, there was the first three, and then the Scars block. So like Scars of Mirrodin, Mirrodin Besiege, New Phyrexia, where it finally became. There were three more there. They put three, two, three. I would say what's the math work out? We're up to six. So it's 7, 8, 9, 10. So they did like two of them went into Modern Horizons
Yeah.
releases. So they just stuck a couple in there, and that was kind of like that sat funny with people. And then we got the final two on our last and probably final time in Phyrexia. So
Yeah.
like Mirrodin is no longer there, right? Like not only is it no longer called Mirrodin, it's called New Phyrexia, but also like read the story, we win.
Yeah.
So what else are we going to be able to do but put them in these sets? So if they were going to do it, they had to do it now.
Yeah.
I'm just, I don't think it's
I
now. It's there.
I agree.
Now it's there. That's
I
all we
agree.
care.
Yeah. And I think they did it exactly the way you'd want to do it, where it's like, yeah, if you've got a place for it, put it. If you don't, that's fine.
Yep. Another thing that we got spoiled that is super fun and totally fan service, 100%. I will not lie to me or anyone else. All of these cards are fan service, but we ended up with ridiculous team ups. It's that moment in the movie where like two unlikely people find each other in a moment of need and everything's going sideways around them and they finally team up. And most of them are going to end up being like either like a good guy, bad guy, or like a good guy anti-hero, or two people who never got along the entire movie and now they just have to get together. We're at that point in the story. So we ended up with lots of nifty team ups that some of them were spoiled already and some weren't. I saw the art in one of them when I was reading a story. So I'm going to lead it off with Rankle and Torbrand.
Okay.
Just because the story, I read it like yesterday or the day before and reading, and I just knew this was going to be one of the team ups reading the story. Rankle is known from his previous card, Rankle Master of Pranks. He's a fairy and is known to be like a pain in the butt for everyone in Eldraine. And then Torbrand is one of the major leaders of the dwarven armies in Eldraine. And it's like this classic trickster youth and this like grizzled old vet going in, and it is hilarious in the story. I don't even know what the card does. I just wanted to, because I like the team up, and this is why these are reaching out to people, because it doesn't matter what the card is as long as like you can get behind the flavor of it and enjoy it. But Rankle and Torbrand is a 1 black red for a 3/4 fairy dwarf legendary with flying, first strike, and haste. And whenever Rankle and Torbrand deals combat damage to a player or battle, choose any number. Each player creates a treasure token. Each player sacrifices a creature, or if a source would deal damage to a player or battle this turn, it deals that much +2 instead. Personally, I like how they melded the two, or like of their original cards together, and we're going to find this a lot throughout any of these matchups that we talk about. But this one takes that, like Rankle had those 3 abilities that you could choose from as you did damage, and choose any is also really funny because that stuck. But then also Torbrand, of course, was the one that increased red damage that was done.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just like a neat little mashup. The art's pretty funny because there's this like little fairy flying through, and then like this like sturdy dwarf swinging his axe. These are super funny to me.
I'm trying so hard. I'm trying so hard with the team up cards. I know that my opinion on this is going to be, I'm going to be the bad guy here for a minute. So for people out there who don't know, generally players tend to fall within various patterns of what, yes, they call them psychographic profiles, but basically they tend to fall into personality types that will make them look at something like this and either really like it or really not like it. Adam tends to be more of a the cool factor is such a huge draw of something. So like a team up like this is really cool because it's something that you would see happen if this were an action movie. This is the Iron Man and Captain America moment in the first Avengers, right? This is these are the times that let you do these really cool everyone's here Smash Brothers moments, which are very neat. And I love them in those types of medias. As a card player, I am very mechanically focused, more so than that. And a lot of that has to do with originally being a tournament player and coming in from that mindset. There's nothing wrong with Rankle and Torbrand. Rankle and Torbrand is like Fairy Dwarf is not a type combination that's going to cause any issues. I do like the flavor, I like the tone and all that. Overall, the team up cards, I'm very, very scared about these about a lot of these team up cards because matching things that are more backbreaking together can be a little weirder. The one that comes to mind specifically is Linvala Andrana. Linvala Andrana is a black-white vampire angel with flying vigilance. It has Linvala's ability of activated abilities your creature's opponent's control can't be activated. And it has one of Drana's abilities from one of her cards where Drana and Linvala has the activated abilities of all creatures your opponents control. You may spend any mana as if it were any color to activate those abilities. So any activated abilities your opponents control, they can't have them and you have them on Drana. It's going to be a pretty heavy prison card. Vampires are always really, really good. Angels are always really, really good. This is a vampire and an angel. It is a 3/4 flying vigilant for 4, which is already a pretty decent stat line for things. This is going to be heavily playable in all black-white decks that are doing any sort of focus on prison, angels, vampires, any of the above. This will be a commander that we see in quite a few decks, and generally the decks that will be playing it are decks that I'm not going to like playing against.
There's everything in what you just said I fully understand and agree with. Everything except for one sentence. You said this is something we're going to see a lot of, and I don't fully agree with that because I don't run against a lot of Linvala decks. I only know of one, and even then I don't think that like Lily plays an angel deck, a mono white angel deck with Jayada as the commander, and I know for a deep-seated fearful fact that she has Linvala in that deck. And that's one person. And again, when you sit down to play with Lily, you know what you're getting into when you play with Lily 100%. And you're ready for it. And I think that like the social contract, especially over the last, like, I'm going to say year, but I think I mean 3 years of like people coming to understand that, and we've discussed this at length a number of times, but people understand that as you're sitting down to play like an hour and a half game with some people, that we all want to play this hour and a half game. I don't want to sit here and watch you play my deck for an hour and a half, or what is actually probably going to be 3 hours, because I can't do anything to stop you.
I think you're right. Let me rephrase, because saying that you'll see it a lot overall is probably false stating. I will see this card a lot when March of the Machine drops in various pods that I play in, and I will be having a bad time until people realize that it does go too far. Because that's sort of the habit of the new card smell, right? It's like, you see a new card, you're like, oh my god, this does so much. I want to play with it. I want to do something. People get it. They build a deck. It's oppressive. They play it like 2 or 3 times, and then they're like, actually, nobody likes playing against this deck. And I don't necessarily know if I like piloting this deck. And then it tends to go by the wayside. Because you're not wrong. Like, one of the things that I mentioned during when 1 was coming out, that I was worried about seeing a bunch of infect and toxic decks come back. And I don't actually have any problem with losing to toxic or infect. I think losing to poison counters is a totally legit strategy that is totally fine. I was worried about was the like blowback from like 3 people at the table playing poison all at the same time, and games just like ending, like it being 20-minute games or whatever. And I only experienced that in 2 pods before people started backing off of the Ixels and the other random new Phyrexian infect groups. So like in that notion, I think that's 100% right. You're actually not going to see this a ton. It's the tables that I sit at, I will see it, and they will be really mean oppressive prison decks that I'll have to groan and live through until things reset back to normal.
So like, and I get where you're coming from, because also like those same people are likely going to be the ones that were going to play that kind of deck anyway, right? Like this is just their flavor of it at the time. There's a lot of people that we know that do like playing that like a little bit of a higher level, and like, here's my puzzle, you have to break through it. Like I'm not saying I'll never see it. I'm saying that on average, your average player won't see it. I venture there's people who are never going to see this, Commander.
I agree.
Because the other thing that we have right now with like the internet being so vast and loud and instant is that as soon as this card was spoiled, there were people all over the place being like, oh no, another Linvala. And everybody's like, do you see Linvala now? Like everybody already knows what Linvala does. So like, and yes, you're going to see it because the new hotness is the new hotness. And like those of us who see the new stuff get really involved in it right away. And you're right, you're probably going to bump into a couple because again, like also you play for content more than a lot of people will. Yeah. And so like what makes the best content? The newest stuff.
The newest stuff.
So true. You're going to end up bumping into this. Yeah. And I am sorry you have to go and put up with a couple of this. Yeah. You need to crawl so the rest of us can walk at the very least.
It's true. It's true. But like as far as flavor goes though, I will say the team up cards are fun. Like they're funny, they're cool. I really like Galta and Maven on that thing. And again, vampires are very good and dinosaurs are very good. But it's also in a weird color schema where it's not like you're going to get to play vampire dinosaurs in green-white super easily. But yeah, they're cool. They're fun to look at. I love Slimefoot and Squee in terms of its like art and sort of partnership direction thing. Fungus Goblin's not going to be too stupidly broken. Right?
No, I don't see that would being a big problem.
The human matchups are probably the ones that I'm the most sort of weary of, like Catilda and Lear, or they just spoiled Baral and Kari Zev. And,
yeah, I'm not looking forward to that one, but
yeah, that's
I don't like Baral anyway.
Yeah, Baral is a tough nut to crack. So dealing with him with a Kari Zev ability, it's kind of a lot. But
kind of a lot. I do like the ones that are like the most ridiculous, because like when you end up like Boborigmos and Fibblethip, I think is super funny. I might build that just simply because it sounds hilarious,
right?
Like, because how much did it go? Okay, I'm going to read it because I haven't read it yet. Yeah. I just know the characters. Boborigmos and Fibblethip is a 2 green, blue, red legendary creature, Cyclops homunculus. And it's a 6/5 and says whenever this card enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card, then you may discard any number of land cards. When you discard one or more cards this way, it deals twice that much damage to target creature. And then 1 in a blue, put it into its owner's library, 3rd from the top. Like Boborigmos loves flinging things. In this case, he's flinging rocks. And Fibblethip gets lost. If you read the Fibblethip's card, it's like got the same effect where you can like tuck it into its owner's library, and it does a little bit of a loot effect. I think this one's super cute, and like you can barely see it on the art, and like I'll have to like almost blow it up on the screen when I go to show it. But Fibblethip is tiny and riding Boborigmos' horn.
Yep, like it's just a little. He's just a little guy. He's just a little guy.
Just a little guy. And he's one of the most beloved characters in Magic. Like he's from Ravnica. He's a little homunculus, and he gets lost all the time. And it's super cute. Super de-duper cute.
Absolutely. Okay, let me talk about a card I am excited about then. So we can continue on for a good one. I am very excited for Glissa, Herald of Predation. And I want to talk a little bit about it because it has one of the new mechanics that is going to be in the sets that may or may not be good, but I think it's a pretty neat situation. So, Glissa, Herald Predation is 3 a black and a white for a 3/5 legendary creature for Phyrexian Zombie Elf. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose one. You can either incubate 2 twice. I'll explain incubate here in a minute. Transform all incubator tokens you control, or Phyrexians you control gain first strike and death touch until end of turn. Okay, so gaining first strike and death touch on your Phyrexians until end of turn is pretty easy to make sense of. This means that this is a Phyrexian creature
Lord.
type Borg card. Incubate, the ability on Incubate is whatever Incubate N is, you put that many +1/+1 counters on a token that is called an Incubator token. Incubator tokens have an ability on them that say, pay 2, transform this artifact. And if you transform the artifact, it turns into a 0/0 Phyrexian artifact creature.
Fun fact, the very first double-sided token that we've ever gotten.
Which is very cool. And so Incubate 2, in this particular case, you would make a incubator, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and then when you paid 2 to transform it, it would turn into a 0/0 with 2 +1/+1 counters, or a 2/2 Phyrexian. I think Incubate is going to be a really fun mechanic to play with. I don't know how good it's going to be overall, but I think that it's going to be very fun to play with, and I like the idea that Glissa has come back. Glissa is a character from old. Originally, she was trying to help save Mirrodin, and then she became part of a group that ended up getting completed and part of the destroying thing, and now she's here.
Her story is a whole other thing. It's
so
big. Sad. She got absorbed into the plane to try and save it. And there's her Sylvan Scrying shows it. And like, so she gets absorbed into like a cocoon in the center of Mirrodin as a way to try and save it. The oil gets to her, and then it converts her. It like completes her in the core of Mirrodin, and then she comes back in scars, and she's just like ready to F stuff up.
Yep.
It's so tragic. I love it.
It's a very tragic story, and having her come back and sort of be this Phyrexian brood mother almost, right? Like, is very cool to me. I love being able to make tokens and abuse making tokens. So being able to incubate and create +1, get them with +1/+1 counters, all that stuff is very cool. The fact that she can transform all of them without you having to pay the mana means that you can play a lot of incubate effects, get to your combat and just flip them over and have a bunch of various power Phyrexians on your side of the field. I love it. I think it's super fun. I think it's super in flavor with what's happened to her over the course of many arcs, and I'm very much looking forward to playing this card.
I also don't know how good Incubate itself is going to be. I reserve judgment for when the whole set's revealed, because it sounds like the kind of thing that's going to need, a lot of support. Because here's the kicker is that stuff like Populate won't touch it, because then they come out with no +1s on them. Clues have proven to be very successful, but this is kind of like a weird long setup for clues. Clues and like food that kind of like pay a little bit, get a little bit. Those have proven successful, and these will probably be fine, but there's no way to like do multiples of them. Now the card that's in this thing just before it is Traumatic Revelation, which is like 1 and a black for sorcery, and it says target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a creature or battle card from it. If you do that, player discards that card. If you don't, incubate 3. So they feel that this is the kind of thing that they can just like tack onto cards here and there to give them a little bit of versatility, which I'm always on board for. But as far as a mechanic in a sealed / like limited environment, it has a shot, I guess, once we see it all. I don't see it being so good that it's going to be the kind of thing you can build a commander deck around, or even make an art. Like, you wouldn't be able to like make an archetype in a cube with it.
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's going to be the kind of thing that it's going to require a lot of setup
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of like real estate in your cube to make work. But as far as like a limited mechanic, I
Mm-hmm.
hold hope.
Yeah, I think for sealed and draft, this is going to be fine. Like it's going to be incremental value in any deck that you put it in, similar to a lot of the way a lot of the one cards ended up, where it's like this does something and get a poison counter, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it was like we're not upping the price too bad to give you a chance to get a poison counter on thing. We want you to be able to win by poison counter, so here you go. I think it's going to be a lot like that, where it's going to be like, okay, I do want to take this card because it has a body attached to it, and being able to have that body later is worth the extra one to this pseudo thought sees, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that's cool. I think that that's good. I agree though. I don't think it's going to have enough value to make a full commander deck out of. I'd be very
Mm-hmm.
surprised if they put enough out to like make it so that you could do a full commander deck out of it. But that being
Like,
said, I will still try.
yeah, and if it works out, like I'd be happy to see it because
Yeah.
it seems like the kind of thing that just because of its investment, like you're gonna just naturally end up in like a mid-range
Hmm.
commander deck if you build it. I do personally see some good stuff going and like cramming this into an already existing Glissa themed deck, or anywhere that like any other Glissa was good, this will be fine in. And so like I like it as a flavor win because
Hmm.
I have a page in one of my collection books of like all of my Chandra cards and then all of my Glissa cards. I've loved Glissa for a long time too, just as much. She doesn't get as much love because she's not a planeswalker, so we only get to see her when we come back to Mirrodin / New Phyrexia.
Hmm.
Uh, RIP. But I mean, I've always quite enjoyed her story as well. And so, like, if as a flavor win, it's great. And if you're already playing a deck flavored around her, then this is going to just slot right in because
Hmm.
that's just kind of what she wants to do. All the other ones care about artifacts like going to the graveyard, and this one just super cares about it too. I think just to kind of like get us on the closeout, there's one more not type of card, but like flavor of card that they've spoiled, and there's at least one I want to talk about because
Hmm.
a good friend of ours hit us both with it this morning and was like, "Oh my god, I want five!" Actually, I said I want five.
Yeah.
Uh, they want one for sure because they want to build it into a commander deck.
Commander. Hmm.
I want five because I see it fitting into several of my own.
Hmm.
But what happened was Phyrexia was going around the multiverse and completing not just people, but people that we know and or things we know and or creatures we know. Like there's just lots that they were getting their inky, oily tendrils into. And some of our we had spoiled some time ago, and I'm less excited to talk about this one, but just as a point of note, Heliod was completed,
Hmm.
the sun god on Theros. And when we saw that, to me anyway, when I saw that first spoiled at like what was it, Magic Philly?
Something like that. Yeah.
I wasn't there, but like I saw the video of it.
Yeah.
As soon as this was spoiled, I knew the gloves were off. Right? Who else were we going to see completed? What else were we going to see completed? And we got at least one that again this is the only one that I personally care to talk about, but there's several others. Pelucranos has been completed, and there's a
I'm
card
excited
that
about that
references
one.
that.
Hmm.
That one is a cool card, not the one that I'm like super jazzed on, but I
Yeah.
can see why people enjoy it, and it's going to see a lot of play because it's also like it turns Hydras into Selesnya, which is weird and cool.
Hmm.
But the one that I think that is probably going to wrap us out, one that I am personally excited for a number of reasons, and also so that we can reach a couple people. Itali. Itali Primal Conqueror is the newest version of our beloved uh, exiling dino. And this one is 5 red red for a 7/7 legendary creature elder dinosaur, has trample, and when it enters the battlefield, each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among the non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. And then it has 9 and a Phyrexian green, transform Itali, activate only as a sorcery. So all of these ones, they all have this same similar ability with a different mana cost on it, but X mana and a Phyrexian mana of a particular color. and then transform this into its other side. And then the other side is its completed side. So Itali Primal Sickness is an 11/11 Phyrexian Elder Dinosaur with Trample and Indestructible. And whenever it attacks, deals combat damage. Sorry, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, they get that many poison counters. So it says toxic, but it's not toxic because toxic wasn't an actual mechanic in this set. I love this card.
Yeah, I mean it's very interesting. Note on the art on this: Atali Primal Sickness. My partner has a model of a dinosaur skeleton that was made with a 3D printer, and this looks like that. Yeah, like I think this card is really cool. What these all seem to have in common, some kind of, it seems like a commonality theme of the ones we've seen so far, is that the back side of them are reminiscent of older cards that you don't see, like you see them in Commander, but they can't be commanders. Blightsteel Colossus is kind of like the touchstone of this one, Atali Primal Sickness. And then the backside of Pelucranos looks like sort of a take on Wormcoil Engine. And so, like, it's kind of cool to see these cards being, and they're highly appropriately costed. Like, in order for you to do this, you have to pay 7, and granted, you're going to get 3 cards out of it, or 4 cards out of it when you play it. But 7 for that, and then an extra 9 or 10 to flip it. Your opponent, and you can only activate it as a sorcery, so your opponent has a chance potentially to stop you from flipping it, you know, is huge. But it is nice to be able to have a Blightsteel in the command zone. Like,
yeah, we have not had that opportunity, and nobody's going to like let you do that, right? Like, if they're like, "Hey, can I rule 0 Blightsteel into my command zone?" And everybody's gonna be like, "No, that's silly. Get out of here." So it's nice to see that they're exploring it in a space, and like as you said, we were talking about it, and it's like 16 mana and 2 life to get 11, like to get a Blightsteel in the zone. That is a reasonable amount to get that effect. Like, if, and once it's in there, and like you got multiple chances to stop it too, right? Like, it's not just like I windmill slam my Blightsteel out of the zone. Like, no, I pay 7.
You'd have,
and then
so
you can destroy it there, counter it there, blah blah blah.
So much prep work would have to go into play in order for you to get this out, transform it, and then immediately kill someone with its ability all in one turn. And Gruul doesn't tend to have that sort of, like, it has push power, but not that kind of push power. So
yeah, it'd be the perfect storm. Like, you'd need haste in your, like, you'd need anger in your graveyard. You would need some way to generate 16 mana, and like all of this on your pre-combat main.
The perfect primal storm.
Yes. But I like that it gives like much the way that it gives weird new space to play in, especially in Commander, for like with these team ups and giving colors access to things they're not supposed to have color like access to by combining, like having, like, for example, going back to the Torbrand Rankle, like join up there. It's like, it's a weird space to see it together. The other one that I didn't point out earlier is like the Grixis one. I saw it and then I lost it. But the Grixis one is Goro Goro and Saturo. And like that one's really interesting, playing with like dragon tokens and haste. And it's just like a really, we won't see that one in the main set. That one's a commander specific card. But like seeing these like team ups gives new space for players to brew in, as does these weird like double-sided, and all of these Phyrexianized beings, whatever you want to call them. It turns, most of which were monocolored at one point, and it turns them into dual colored decks where they normally wouldn't be. I think Pelucranos was actually like was Golgari before. I don't recall. But Itali has been mono red forever and a day. Heliod was mono white forever and a day, and now Heliod is Azorius. Pelucranos is, and this is the only three we've seen right now.
Yeah.
So it gives an interesting space for them to play in, but also just like what a critter to have in the zone. I am looking forward to seeing that card out, even though it's going to be dumb and scary. And I like that it semi fixed the problem that everybody has with like playing Atali, because like Atali comes out and then it's like a lightning rod. And everybody is immediately trying to take it out because if it swings once, it gets its value. If it swings twice, you might as well concede. So everybody just like immediately goes for it.
Mm-hmm.
Big bullseye on his face. Whereas with this one, like you have to hold up a counter spell because it's an ETB effect.
Yeah.
You only get it once, but like really, how many times have you gotten Atali to get off twice? And once was probably enough, even in like a regular Atali deck.
Exactly. It's like Primal Storm decks, like they gain so much value from being able to play, upwards of 4 cards for free, that the cost of playing Primal Storm is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one just does that when it enters the battlefield, and it does it better because it will get a non-land card to play. So
Mm-hmm.
there you're going to get 4 cards off of a 7 cost thing. It's gonna be big. I think that this one's gonna be one that people are really going to like playing for the fun of it, and if
Yeah.
they manage to blight steel, cool, but if not, I think some people will just be happy to play the big dummy side of it and get to cast 4 cards for free.
Like I'm already like planning a cut in my Faldorn deck, right? Like is the one that
Mm-hmm.
cares about where like stuff getting cast from exile.
Yeah.
I already run the other Atali in there.
Mm-hmm.
Why not this one too? And it just so happens to fit the colors. And there's a lot of people who are going to be looking at these and being like, these already fit my thing.
Mm-hmm.
How can I cram them in there otherwise? And like I don't know, it's a good time to be a commander player, and I don't know what kind of time it is to be a standard player right now. We have yet to be seen. This hasn't been fully released yet.
Yeah.
As I said, we actually refreshed this website once while we were already recording and got more previews, so like it's very fresh right now.
Mm-hmm. I think that that's pretty much the major things. We know that we didn't talk about backup because that showed up late. We didn't talk about the Phyrexian Praetors that turn into sagas.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to talk about the thing I'm most excited about, which is Quintorius, but that's because Quintorius doesn't actually matter much. I just am excited.
Yeah, unfortunately. I know he's a favorite character of yours, and in the story plays a pretty fun part.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually like so far one of the only like all by themselves legendary creatures that was spoiled.
Yes.
That is just like we've had legendary creatures that apply to the story, such as Praetors, legendary creatures that were completed, legendary creatures that were teamed up, and then Quintorius.
Yep.
what a cute little elephant.
What a nice ad. At some point I'm going to make Adam do an episode where we just talk about our particular favorite plane, because I want to go off about Strixhaven so badly. Like I want to talk about Arcavios so badly in a way that isn't like negative or trying to use Boros instead of Lorehold and all this other stuff. I want to go into a whole rant about it. But that's not happening today because we're way past time on that.
We are way over time. So, gang, thanks for joining us on this magical new adventure. I know it's a departure from what we normally do. We tried to tie it back into the things that we normally discuss, and I'm not really that sad that we didn't, because it's new cards, and new cards are exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And we may or may not come back to review some of this in a little bit. Who knows? We don't know. We have other episodes half written or fully written in the tank waiting to get dropped, but this came out today. We decided this was going to be our topic, and we did it because it's super fresh. So thank you for joining us on this wild and crazy adventure. Matt, thank you for hanging out with me while I ramble about new cards, and I, in turn, give you the floor to thank me.
thank you for hanging out and being a part of this. And if you did like this episode, comment down below and let us know if you want us to do more stuff like this, because we do like doing these rambly episodes, but we want to make sure that you have a chance to get the whole spectrum of what we do. So,
gang, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time on Unlimited Commander. Have a great time.
bye.
If you liked what we had to say, consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support goes directly to growing and improving the show.
You can also like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Make sure to comment or leave a review. The cast can also be found on Twitter at Unlimited Commander.
You can find Matt's Twitch, Twitter, and other YouTube projects at knowledgepoolmtg.com.
And Adam can be found on Twitch and Twitter at Adamus_Prime86.
Our theme song is Polaroid by Harris Heller, licensed by Creative Commons.